everyone, I am here with a true story for you. This one is called Miracle in Mobile. The quote before this story is by Timothy Jones from Celebration of Angels. The gloriously odd may be more normal than we think. So this must be going to be interesting. Miracle in Mobile. Let's see. For some of us, signs and wonders are rare events. At least it seems that way. Others, like Betty Billings, have had a lifetime of spiritual adventures. Hers began when she was 6. She had a near-death experience while her tonsils were being removed. The voice of a gentle, loving man spoke to her in the midst of an exquisite meadow-like setting, a scene she has never seen duplicated despite her extensive travels. She believed she was in heaven with Jesus, and he gave her a choice to return to earth. After her marriage, Betty worked a construction job. On one occasion, at a building site, a scaffold board weighing over 200 pounds fell from above, right toward her head. "Look out," the other workers yelled at Betty, and she jumped away, but not before all of them saw the board stop in midair for just a few seconds before crashing to the spot where she had been. Perhaps Betty's most wondrous adventure happened in 1956. She lived in Cincinnati and had been mopping ever since her best friends Pat and Sam Brewer had moved to Mobile, Alabama. When her husband, Kenneth, came home one night, Betty had a plan. "We need a vacation," she announced. "Let's drive down and visit the Brewers for the 4th of July weekend." Kenneth looked at their 2-year-old son. "Wouldn't it be a long ride for Timothy?" "Probably," Betty said, nodding, "but I miss Pat and Sam so much." Although the couples kept in touch, phone calls couldn't substitute for being together. There were no interstate highways then, and the following day, when Kenneth brought home a map, he realized that the journey to Mobile would take almost 24 hours. Worse, they'd arrived toward evening, and the Brewers lived in an obscure area. Betty had called the Brewers that day. They were delighted at the upcoming visit and suggested Kenneth phone when he reached Mobile so they could provide specific directions to their home. But Kenneth was still concerned about getting lost. Betty, however, had no such qualms and was delightedly immersed in packing. "God will be watching over us," she told her hesitant husband. "You know I try to keep him as close as my tongue and my car keys. It will all work out." The drive was long and tedious, and they stopped frequently so Timothy could run around. But only when they drove into Mobile on Highway 45 and found themselves in a darkening, run-down section of town did Betty begin to worry. The map did seem very confusing. Apparently a river was ahead of them, and then what? "God, we need help," Betty whispered. Coming up on their right was a Pure Oil station. It looked closed, since there were no customers buying gas at the pumps, no activity of any kind inside the brick building. But perhaps there would be a payphone available. Kenneth turned in, and as he did, a slim, blue uniformed attendant appeared, striding briskly toward their car. "We are a little lost," Kenneth told him. "How can I help?" The attendant looked through the window, smiling at Timothy. Kenneth gave him Sam's address, and the attendant nodded. "You go down here," he pointed confidently, without consulting the map, and then his directions were brief, businesslike, and easy to understand. What a nice man, Betty thought. There's no need to call the Brewers now. Wearily, she leaned back and closed her eyes. Odd, though, that a mechanic's clothes would be so crisp and clean so late in the day, and the man had appeared so quickly, almost as if he was expecting them. But his directions were perfect. Soon Kenneth and Betty pulled right up to the front of the small house, and Pat and Sam ran down the front walk, arms wide in welcome. "Why didn't you phone us?" Pat asked when the hugging stopped. "Our house is so hard to find." "We didn't need to. The Pure Oil attendant in town knew exactly where you lived," Kenneth explained. "Who?" Betty described the station, the specific corner, the helpful man who seemed to know what they needed before they even asked. Only then did she notice the odd looks on Pat's and Sam's faces. "Betty," Pat said gently, "you couldn't have gotten directions there." "But we did," Betty insisted. "No," Pat shook her head. "There used to be a Pure Oil station at that intersection, but it was torn down several years ago to widen the highway. There's just a little part of one brick wall left." Betty bit her tongue. She didn't want to argue, not after such an exhausting journey. She would simply show her friends tomorrow. The next day, however, there was nothing to show. Although Betty and Kenneth remembered their route and retraced it to the same corner, they found no service station, no gas pumps, no blue uniformed attendant, just weeds and part of an old brick wall. The Billingses moved to Mobile the following year, and whenever Patty passed her corner, she felt an unmistakable glow. Had it been a vision, that glimpse into a long time ago? She couldn't explain it. She knew only that she had asked God to protect her family, and he had shown her what, whenever his children travel, they are never alone.